The Philadelphia 76ers have been eliminated from the Eastern Conference playoffs thanks to Trae Young, Kevin Herter, and the Atlanta Hawks, and we're here to talk about it right after the bumper. What's going on, everybody? It's Jeff Lightsy Jr. here with the Black Boss Channel and Victory Formation. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe, and the notification bell because we upload every single day. Now, Trae Young, Kevin Herter, and the Atlanta Hawks have eliminated the Philadelphia 76ers from the Eastern Conference playoffs. The Hawks are headed to the Eastern Conference Finals, where they will take on the Milwaukee Bucks after the Bucks eliminated the Brooklyn Nets in the Eastern Conference playoffs as well. Two teams that a lot of people didn't expect to be in the Eastern Conference finals, especially if you're the Atlanta Hawks, who were a 5 seed. Now, here's the thing. The 76ers, we're here to talk about them because the process is officially over. The process has officially failed the process is one that it was an epic failure, an epic failure by the largest circumstance, mainly because the process did not produce the players that it was supposed to do. The process did not produce the results that it was supposed to. The process did not work in the way it was supposed to. Leave a thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe, and be interactive in the chat because we are here to give a dissertation about the 76ers and all that went wrong, all that went right. Nothing went right. All of it went wrong. And we're here to talk about it. And it all starts and ends with Mr. Ben Simmons. Let's be honest, guys. Ben Simmons is not the guy that we thought he was. Ben Simmons is not the guy that we thought he was. Ben Simmons is not the guy that we thought he was. We thought he could be. We thought he would be, and it just ain't it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just not, and that's what we have to come to the realization. Last night, he had 5 points. Hear me again when I say this. The man, Ben Simmons, number one overall pick. Ben Simmons, All Star. Ben Simmons, Game 7. Ben Simmons at home. Ben Simmons with a chance to go to the Eastern Conference Finals. Game on the line. Season on the line. Not game on the line. Season on the line. Had 5 points. This is your all-star. This is your max contract guy. This is a guy that's getting paid 35 plus $1 million a year with the season on the line, everybody. And we have to think about this. The season on the line had 5 points in an elimination game and was outperformed by a guy who didn't shoot the ball very well. Trae Young did not shoot the ball well at all. I'll give Ben Simmons his credit on defense. But you don't pay a guy 30, $35 million to be a defensive stopper. I'm sorry, that's not how the NBA works. I'm sorry, that's not how life works. I'm sorry, that's just not how it works. If I'm going to pay you upwards of a $150 million contract, upwards of 30, 35, $40 million contracts by the last year, it can't just be for defense. I'm sorry, because good offense beats good defense any and every day of the week in this league. And anybody who watches basketball, anybody that knows anything about basketball, anybody that knows anything about the NBA style of basketball, knows that good offense beats good defense any day of the week and twice on Sundays. Leave your thoughts in the chat. Please, we're here to have a vent session about Ben Simmons and the 76ers because here's what's going to happen this offseason. This offseason, they're going to blow it up. Ben Simmons is getting traded this offseason. Book it down, mark it down, guarantee it. I remember I made a video last week when the Hawks took the lead in the series, and I said, Trae Young is this close from breaking up the 76ers. Trae Young is this close from, making the 76ers explode. Trae Young is this close from eliminating the process. And it wasn't even Trae Young completely. That's the thing. It was actually the play of Kevin Herter. Kevin Herter, an American, Caucasian male out of the University of Maryland with red hair, is the one who ended the process. Because think about it, there's not many actually like American born white men in the NBA right now. And one of them is Kevin Herter. and Kevin Herter can play his tail off. And Kevin Herter was getting buckets. Kevin Herter can hoop. Kevin Herter is what sent the 76ers home. Tobias Harris is a waste of money. Joel Embiid is my guy, and Joel Embiid is one of the most dominant big men in the NBA right now, but Joel Embiid stays hurt. And Ben Simmons is supposed to be your number two. Your number two player on your team can't score 5 points in an elimination game. Your number two player on your team can't get outperformed by like three guys on the other team. Your number two player on the team who gets paid $150 million, who's on a $150 million contract. Like let's think about some of the moves that the 76ers made. And this is why I say the process is officially over, and the process is like the worst thing, one of the worst things, one of the biggest missteps in NBA basketball history. Here's why. So the process was, let's break it down. For those who don't understand, who don't remember, who don't know, who just don't want to piece it together, the process was what 76ers and their then GM, Hinkie, I think his name was Sam Hinkie. I don't have my computer in front of me. But Hinkie decided, hey, we don't have a very good team. If we just tank games, which means lose games, play young guys, not like they purposely played young guys who weren't very good. If we lose games, that'll make our ping pong chances, because the NBA does a lottery. It makes our ping pong chances go up a ton, and we'll have a better chance of getting a high draft pick, right? We'll get a better chance of getting a high draft pick. And so the better chance we have of getting a high draft pick, the better chance we have of getting a high level player. Because with the higher the draft pick, the better the player is supposed to be. So if you get the number one pick, you're supposed to get the number one player. Get the number two pick, you're supposed to get the number two player. You get the number three pick, you get the number three player, et cetera, et cetera. So the Sixers went into this process, which they deemed the process. They went into the process and they tanked and lost a bunch of games. But the problem with the process was not only were they not getting the number one pick consistently, they would always fall and get like number 3 or number 6 or whatever. Joel Embiid was a number 3 pick. But another problem with the process, quote unquote, was they not only were they not drafting the best player at that spot, for like 3 straight years, they just took the tallest guy in the draft or the best big man. So they had 4 straight years or 3 straight years where they drafted a forward / center. They drafted Nerlens Noel one year. I think that was 2012. Then the very next year they drafted Jahlil Okafor, which was 2013. And then the very next year, 2014, they took Joel Embiid. So for 3 straight years, they took centers. And not only did they take centers, Nerlens Noel and Jahlil Okafor weren't even like modern day centers. The NBA was getting away from the big men. And this is around the time Steph Curry, Golden State, and the Warriors had the NBA playing like the Phoenix Suns, all right? Like the D'Antoni Phoenix Suns. Now the Warriors had the entire NBA playing like that. And Steph Curry was lighting up the league with his threes. So not only were they taking the tallest guy, but they were also in guys at the same position, but they were taking guys who couldn't even stretch the floor. Nerlens Noel and Jahlil Okafor were back to the basket, old school type centers. Nerlens Noel couldn't even score in college. And the NBA was becoming more and more of an offensive league, and Nerlens Noel couldn't even get buckets in college. And on top of that, not only were they drafting back to the basket centers, they were drafting guys who were hurt. Nerlens Noel came out of college off of a torn ACL. Joel Embiid came out of college off of a messed up knee or something. Like he missed his first 2 years in the league. Nerlens Noel missed his first year in the league. So they were drafting back to the basket centers in a league that was going to 3-point shooters. They were drafting guys who played the same position, all 7 foot or above, 6'10" or above, when the NBA was becoming more of a guard / wing league. And none of these guys could score. Even Joel Embiid now, I mean, it's a good pick. Looking, hindsight's 2020. It's a good pick now, but at the time, he was still a very raw, undeveloped prospect. So they kind of got lucky on Joel Embiid that he became the guy that he became. But even then, it was still like a risk you were taking. The number one reason because he was hurt. You drafted a 7-footer who had bad knees and bad feet. I think he had a broken foot going into the draft. And so you drafted a 7-footer who had bad feet before he even played an NBA game. So, my God. So, moving forward. So, after Joel Embiid, the 76ers take, they had the number 3 overall pick in the very next draft. That's what, 2015. And so instead, no, 2015 is when they take Ben Simmons. And Ben Simmons, they had the number 1 overall pick, and they took Ben Simmons. So they were supposed to pair Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons together. And then the very next year, they had the number 3 pick. They trade the number 3 pick and move up from 3 to number 1 so they could take Markelle Fultz. So what happens with Ben Simmons and Markelle Fultz? Well, Ben Simmons misses his entire rookie year because once again, they drafted a guy who was hurt. They drafted a guy that was hurt. By this time, they realized Jahlil Okafor is just not going to work. By this time, they also realized Nerlens Noel is not going to work. Oh, yeah, and by the way, Joel Embiid missed his first 2 years in the league. He didn't play a game in 2 years. And Ben Simmons didn't play a game his whole rookie year. And then you draft Markelle Fultz. You move up from 3 to 1. And instead of taking Jason Tatum, who was probably the best college prospect coming out of Duke at 6'8", and he could actually shoot. He actually wasn't a center. Drafted what they thought would be their point guard of the future, and Markelle Fultz, who was a scoring guard, which they had the right intentions, but because he was a scoring guard and he was a player that they didn't have on the roster, and they drafted Markelle Fultz, and somehow, some way, he was broken by the time he got to he was broken by the time he got to Philly. Markelle Fultz he forgot how to play basketball. He gets drafted by the Sixers, number 1 overall pick, and forgets how to play basketball. Don't think I'm lying. Look it up. He literally forgot how to play basketball, and yeah, so that was a total disaster. So let's check the score on this. I don't like to call players bust because, Kwame Brown came out and said we shouldn't call guys bust. So let's check the score. If they drafted Nerlens, Jahlil Okafor, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Markelle Fultz. There's 5 guys. Out of those 5 guys, 2 of them didn't work off the jump. Jahlil Okafor and Nerlens Noel did not work from the jump in Philly. Right when they were drafted. No, 3 guys. 3 guys off the jump didn't work from the jump. Nerlens Noel, Jahlil Okafor, and Markelle Fultz. None of them worked from the jump in Philly. Joel Embiid missed his first 2 years in the league, and Vince missed his first year in the league. So if you're keeping score at home, they're 0 for 5 at this point. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe. So the Sixers are 0 for 5 at this point if you're keeping tabs at home. So moving forward. So you got to get rid of Joel Embiid. You have to get rid of Nerlens Noel. You have to get rid of Jahlil Okafor. You have to get rid of Markelle Fultz. But Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons actually work. Once these guys finally get healthy, they actually work. They're actually pretty good NBA players. Ben Simmons wins Rookie of the Year. Joel Embiid comes back and is a perennial All-Star and at times is the best big man in the entire NBA. Once he's actually healthy, he actually proves like, hey, okay, we got this one right. So, about 3 years ago, both of these guys have been in the league a few years at this point. There was literally the Sixers get eliminated, and there was literally this conversation: is this pairing good enough to win you a title? You had 2 guys that now are all-stars in Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. And it's like, can this work? Because at this time, Ben Simmons doesn't have a jump shot, but he has a really good handle. He plays point guard for you. He's a 6'10" point guard, essentially. And you're like, man, he could be the next LeBron James, because even out of high school, when LeBron first came to the league, he shot the ball, but his jump shot wasn't where it is now, right? Like, his jump shot has drastically improved throughout the league. And so there was these LeBron James comparisons. And for Joel Embiid, he was a stretch center that could play on the perimeter and knock down threes, but also dominate the post. But at times he fell, and still times now, he fell in love with the 3 ball too much. But this This pairing looked like the future of the NBA, looked like the future of the Philadelphia 76ers, looked like the future of a team that could win a championship. And then they got eliminated by Kawhi and the Toronto Raptors in the Eastern Conference playoffs. And at that moment, after they were eliminated by Kawhi and the Toronto Raptors, there were still high hopes for this team. But the voices, the people, they got to creeping and saying, if we had to keep one, who would we keep? Would we keep Joel, who at this point had proven he was injury prone? Remember, he missed his first 2 years in the league, and he had several nagging injuries throughout his career up until this point. But he was dominant. He could score on all three levels in the NBA. He is a dominant big man, especially on the offensive end, and is a shot blocker / rim protector on the defensive end. Do we keep that guy who has injuries, but is very dominant on both sides of the ball when he does play? Or do we keep Ben Simmons, the guy at this point is mainly a defensive guy, but has a crazy tight handle, can make assists, be getting these puny triple doubles, but there's so much what the NBA and what people in the NBA love to say is quote unquote potential. There is so much quote unquote potential for Ben Simmons and so much quote unquote potential for him to be a star, for him to be a poor man's LeBron James, which isn't a bad thing. Like that is not disrespect when I say poor man's LeBron James, because LeBron James is the greatest basketball player to ever play in the NBA. So there's no diss when I say a poor man's LeBron James. There's nothing to be offended by to say that you are a poor man's version of LeBron James. And a lot of people were on the Ben Simmons side. A lot of people were seeing Ben Simmons, who was rookie of the year when it should have been Donovan Spider-Mitchell. Ben Simmons, who hadn't, even attempted a three-point shot or even a jump shot in general, is the guy that the Sixers should move on with, is the guy that the Sixers should bet their franchise on, is the guy that the Sixers, if the process was a complete fail because of Jahlil Okafor, Nerlens Noel, and Markelle Fultz, Ben Simmons was going to make the process look like it was a work of art, a masterpiece. Although we just got three guys that were drafted in the top 10 or in the top 5 that didn't work. But hey, Ben Simmons was supposed to be the guy that the process was all about. That the process would pay off because we got our poor man's version of LeBron James. Well, 2 years later, Ben Simmons is the exact same person, the exact same player that he was 2 years ago. Joel Embiid has improved. Joel Embiid has stayed more healthy. Joel Embiid has gotten in shape. Joel Embiid has continued to dominate, so much so that, well, I take that back. He stayed somewhat healthy. He's been healthier than he was in the past. Because I can't say he's been healthy all the way, because if he was healthy this year all the way, he would have won MVP and not Jokic. But he did come in second in MVP voting, so that's still pretty good. And Joel Embiid is still a ball player. Joel Embiid can still make plays. Joel Embiid is still dominant. Joel Embiid has expanded his game. He falls in love with the three-point shot too much, but he still can make plays, and he still is dominant on both sides of the ball. When he's healthy. There's a big question mark because he's not always healthy. So when he is healthy, he is still a dominant player in this league. But Ben Simmons, on the other hand, not only has he not improved, not only in 5 years in the league has he stayed the same player, Ben Simmons has actually regressed. And here's how. Not only has he not improved his jump shot, not one iota, does he not attempt three-pointers, not one at all, but he's actually regressed because he has now become a liability, especially in close games in the fourth quarter. Ben Simmons, during these playoffs, shot a measly 32% from the free throw line. Guys, listen to me when I say this. Ben Simmons shot a measly 32% from the free throw line. That is worse than guys like Shaquille O'Neal, than Giannis, than LeBron James. Think of the worst free throw shooters in the history of the game. That is down there with them. Ben Wallace, This is horrible. And guys, Ben Simmons is a guard. Ben Simmons plays point guard. Ben Simmons guards Trae Young. Ben Simmons guards your best guard. And he shot a measly. He shot so bad from the free throw line that I actually saw several times throughout these playoffs, and it was smart coaching, especially by Nate McMillan of the Hawks. They went to Hacker Simmons. Hacker Simmons on a guard? You go to Hacker Shack on a guard? I've never seen that before in my entire life, where they actually purposely foul. You're losing, or it's a close game. The Hawks would either be losing or it'd be really close, a close lead. And most of the time they did when they were losing. And they go and purposely foul Ben Simmons. He go up there, clank 2 free throws, and it's a free possession for the Hawks to try to cut the lead. That, my dear friends, is insane. That is inexcusable. That should not be happening. That is embarrassing. That is not what you trusted the process for. You did not trust the process for one of your number one overall picks, not even with you anymore. After 2 years, you had to let him go. Your other top 3 pick, Jahlil Okafor, he might be out of the league. Your other top 5 pick, I think Nerlens Noel actually went number 6, plays for a different team, and he was never an offensive threat. Your other top 3 pick is Joel Embiid, and your last number 1 overall pick, Ben Simmons, can't even play in the fourth quarter. He's your lead point guard. He's your all-star. He's your max level player, and you can't even play him in the fourth quarter. That, my friends, is sad. And that is why the process was an epic failure. Ben Simmons, I highly doubt he'll be a Philadelphia 76er next year. I think he has played his last game in Philly as a member of the Sixers. And nobody is to blame but himself. He put himself in this situation. He is the one who has shown no improvement through 5 years. And yes, I can be critical of his game because he gets paid to play basketball, and he has not improved his game one iota in 5 NBA seasons. And he gets paid over $35 million a year. I'm sorry. That is just unacceptable. That's horrible. And he deserves every bit of criticism that he is getting right now, including from his head coach, Doc Rivers, who he's not off the hook neither. We're not going to let Doc off the hook because we see the Clippers, the team Doc led for 7 years, in the Western Conference Finals, a place he couldn't take them in 7 years, even when he had Chris Paul and Blake Griffin. And we see them in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, and we see them in the Western Conference Finals right now, even without Kawhi Leonard. But Doc Rivers was asked. They asked him. They said, "Hey, Doc, could you see Ben Simmons being the point guard of a team that wins the finals?" And Doc Rivers said to the reporter, "I can't answer that right now because I don't know." That, my good friend, does not bode well because he's telling the honest to God truth. Really? He wants to say no. To be all honest, he wants to say no. Whatever your reporter, I cannot see Ben Simmons being the starting point guard for an NBA championship team. You know why? Because we can't even play him in the freaking fourth quarter. When your starting point guard shoots 30% from the free throw line, and they go to hack a point guard, hack a Simmons, hack a Shaq on our starting point guard, then no, he can't lead us to an NBA championship. Not when he's averaging 5 Sorry about that. Had connection issues. I don't know what was going on. But at the end of the day, Ben Simmons cannot be a starting point guard for a championship team. And Doc wanted to say no, but Doc is his head coach, and he still is an active member of the Philadelphia 76ers. He's still on the roster. But Ben Simmons, I'm sorry, man. They're going to have to move on from Ben Simmons. They're going to have to send him and try to get whatever they can in return. But the jury is out, and the league knows. Now they can send him to a bad team. A bad team will take him and take his contract because they just want to be a better team. But a championship contending team knows that Ben Simmons, especially on that deal, that contract, and what will ultimately be expected of him, cannot be the second fiddle or the second guy. It won't work. You leave your thoughts in the chat. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Once again, I'm Jeff Lightsy Jr. with the Black Balls Channel. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.